Recording. Okay, I will now call the spring planning work session to order at 3:09. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here this afternoon. Begin with introductions, and I'll turn it over to Executive Director Kevin Greenwood in meeting elder.
Thank you.
Who are we introducing?
Well, let's start with our budget committee members.
Thank you, budget committee members. Do you want to introduce
There we go.
yourselves?
Yeah.
Brown, budget committee. Bonifacio Romero.
I think that's all we've got so far.
Gotcha.
We don't have anybody else in mind, right? Okay.
Looks like it's just Commissioner Thomas, and then we've got Gretchen Goss, one of our communications consultants, and then behind me is Brian Points and Carson Daly from Points Consulting. They were the successful bidder for the strategic business plan process, and so they will be presenting a little bit later on this afternoon as kind of a kickoff for the strategic business plan process. Let's see, we also have Emily, who is our new coordinator working with Megan, and we've got Jeff Bernard back here, who's our contract airport manager. And then let's see, Steve, do you want to, for the record, do you want to just introduce your name for the record?
Steve Tesler.
Patty. Victoria Reed.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Great. Okay, so here we are. It's spring planning. So I think this is going to be about a 2 hour and 15-minute session today. There's a lot of projects that we've been working on over the last 18 months, but really just kind of want to take a chance to review the commission's goals and the themes that we got out of the fall planning session. If you recall from, and this is in your report as well, I'm not going to read all the themes, but I do think it's important to touch on the goals. One, safety continues to be our #1 priority here at the port. The second goal was to improve transparency of the port to its constituents. 3, pursue projects that will generate positive net income for the port. 4, pursue practices that will decrease operational costs. 5, continue to review and create port policies. 6, prepare for bridge replacement. And 7, invest in employee training and education. So I think the commission's been pretty clear that port assets should be developed in a way that generates enough positive net income to support parks, our waterfront rec, and ongoing economic development. As you know, as of July 1 of this year, toll revenues will no longer be available to support these activities. So that direction and that theme becomes even more important as we look ahead into fiscal year 27. At the same time, the commission has consistently affirmed that the port should continue to play a meaningful role in economic and recreational development here in the Mid-Columbia, including after the bridge is replaced. That role remains, but it will need to be supported by financially sustainable assets and disciplined capital decisions. Before moving further, I've already introduced Carson and Brian from Points Consulting. As I mentioned, they will do a kickoff on our strategic business plan later on this afternoon. The strategic business plan is really the anchor document for both spring and fall planning. And so it's been since 2021. So this is our update. So I think this is a perfect time to go through that process. So as staff has worked through the projects that are included in the packet here that you'll be reviewing today, we've used these planning goals and the strategic business plan as kind of our guidepost as direction to move forward on these. So, I really want to take some time and just hear from the commission that the goals and the themes from that fall planning, that you feel like those are still pertinent. If there's a need to change or add any goals, remove any goals, reprioritize, or if you think there is a theme that no longer applies, or that you think there's another theme that should be added, I would love to get some feedback from the commission, how we can modify this document for today.
Thomas? Anything to add or subtract?
No, I think I like all the goals. I think the bridge replacement is something obviously I'm very supportive of, being in DC currently, so I couldn't be there with you all in person. But I do also appreciate that staff training and education is one of our goals, just because in order to run efficiently and effectively, our staff has to be up to date with the newest rules, regulations, and opportunities. And so I support the goals as written. Thank you.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and, I'm sorry, Dick. Are you good with the goals and the themes?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really stated, on goals. I feel like our overarching goal in a sense is to provide the best service that we can for our constituents. And all of these other things are in service of that. I don't know that we need to formally state it. I just wanted to state it for the record. I know that we're always trying to like generate positive net income, but that is always second fiddle to providing service to our community. So all I'm saying.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So with that, I will hand it over to the finance director of the board, Debbie Smith-Winger.
Thank you, Kevin. I also want to say thank you to everybody for the goal of investing in employee training and education, because I can tell you that not only is good for the port in as Commissioner Thomas said, to make sure people are up on rules, regulations, all the things that affect their job, but it also makes people feel like the port appreciates them in addition. So it's a win-win really to invest in our staff. And so I really do appreciate that. That said, Kevin didn't really talk too much about preparing for the fiscal 27 budget. We've got a draft budget that Kevin and I have been bouncing back and forth, and it really does become the basis then for the 10-year forecast. Because what we're doing right now and the money that we commit to certain projects right now will carry forward. And we want to make sure that we have the money focused on the things that are going to carry forward. And I keep laughing as I go through the process this year, because last year at this time, we budgeted money to build storage units out at Lower Mill. That was our whole focus on Lower Mill last year at this time, was on building storage units, because we were trying to find a way to generate revenue out there. And I was always, I mean, I wasn't opposed to it, but I was always like, I'm not really sure that that's the right thing. So I was actually happy when we came along and decided to sell it instead, because I think that was the better choice for that particular property. And so even if the deal, I mean, I know the deal with Amazon is moving forward, but even if it did fall through, I think that'd be my recommendation, is to market that property. But that being said, where we are at now is that we expect to close on that property before the end of the fiscal year. We also expect to close on the property over on Wasco Court, the other property that we've been looking at. And so we do have some big inflows, but also some big outflows budgeted in the upcoming months. And even if we did not purchase the other property that we've been looking at, we have to move facilities somewhere before construction starts on the new bridge. So there's a number of things that I was looking at when I was going through the 10-year forecast. And I have to say this year, I felt the best about the 10-year forecast as I have in a long time, because I actually have some projects to put in here. And I have to give Megan and Amanda a big shout out for that, because they've come with ideas and they've helped us to see how those ideas can become reality. And so that's always been the hard part in the past, is that we would throw out all these ideas, but nobody really knew how that was going to happen and how that was going to work. So some of the key assumptions in this 10-year forecast is that there will be a land lease for commercial property over here of some kind, that will do something with the commercial property to turn it into a revenue generator. That there will be a land lease at the maritime property starting probably sometime in 2031-ish, that we'll do something again with that property. We make money on that property now, but it's probably not the prime money producer that it could be. This also assumes that grants are successful for the waterfront transportation for the roundabout over there. It assumes that grants will be successful for that, and that grants will be successful for the airport terminal building. So there's some assumptions that are made that may or may not come to fruition. And any of those that don't happen, we'll have to talk about that and say, then what are we going to do? If this plan does not go as planned, which is very likely to happen, that something along the way will change. But it means that we come back and we talk about it again. But those are the key, I think, the big assumptions that are made moving forward. As Kevin alluded to, this is the last year of a transfer into the general fund from the bridge fund. So that comes to an end moving forward. What made me happy with all of this, though, and it's the first time that I've actually done the big general fund overview, which is really what we've needed all along, is to make sure that we were going to have money going forward and that we weren't going to end up in some negative situation somewhere down the road. And I think you can see from that we do end up, we continue to have money, we continue to operate, we continue to be okay. The parks property, so the waterfront recreation property, Marina Green, some of those require money from some other source within the board in order to keep those going and in order to keep those at a really high quality level, which is the direction we've been given in the past, is to keep our parks and our waterfront just in really, really good shape, make them really nice. And so that requires money. But I think you can see, if you look at this, that even though there's some negative numbers going forward, we have really positive numbers from industrial properties. The commercial property turns very positive. Parking continues to be a source of, it continues to generate revenue for that. And then even the non-departmental, which is things like interest income and the property tax. Our property tax is only about $100,000 a year. But again, when you add all these things together, you come up with enough money to keep parks going and to keep our recreation facilities, in really good shape. And so that was really what I came away from when I went through this process. And again, it's a big process because I have to think of all these assumptions and what are they going to cost in the future? What are we going to generate in revenue in the future? But the bottom line is that we're moving forward, I think, in a really positive manner. And with that, I don't want to talk a lot. I wrote a memo that went over the top of it, so you hopefully have read that, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that might have been generated by the 10-year forecast. Cool. Okay.
Should be really easy questions to answer.
The
first one, but I think there are interesting things for just getting on the public record. On page 11 packet, under the admin facilities relocation project, talks about the cost under the capital expense section, the total capital cost of about 3.3 million. Says bridge proceeds the 3 million, which we know. And but then it says non-6F 1.5 million available. What does that mean? What is that money?
That is the money that we have assumed, and this is just an estimate, but we have assumed that that's for the replacement of this building. Okay. So when they're looking at making us whole, basically, for the bridge project, taking this property, there is the underlying land, which needs to be replaced with similar 6F property. But then there's also this building, which it becomes money to
so the net port investment estimate of about 1.8 million would be additional money that we would have to cough up to get the relocation accomplished.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. The next question I've got is on page 35.
Page 35, you said, Commissioner Beaker?
35.
Yes, the Marina Basin.
35, okay, thank you.
This is, why does the internal service charge for the Marina Basin, why is it expected to nearly double going to fiscal year 26-27?
That's mostly inflation, actually, over time.
But then there's a very, very minor increase in further years. There's just this really big jump
Oh, in the next couple of years?
from this year's estimated actual 263,000 to next year 483,000. And then we just have very small increases for internal service charges. Now, this is internal service charges is all the different things that are done by port staff, right?
Correct.
Where you guys are tracking, hey, I spent this much time doing marina things. So I'm just trying to understand why that is changing so much in 1 year.
Yes, and actually, a lot of the numbers change a lot from the estimated actuals for the current fiscal year
noticed.
to the, yes.
Yes.
And so what that is, so when we do the budget, when I do the budget, I make my best guess. I take all the information that I have and I make my best estimate as to where we are going to be spending port resources. So, and the big one, especially when you look at Marina Basin, the big one is our facilities crew and where they're spending their time. Marina Basin does include Marina Green Park.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of land for us to keep up. And so this year, I believe when you see the estimated actual, I believe that that's going to be, and I don't want to say artificially low because it's where people are actually spending their time, but I think it's lower than what it will be in the future. I don't think that we're spending as much time out there, especially facilities, getting things done. I could be wrong about that, but each year, what gets charged to the different departments is what is actually used by the departments. So I do the estimates and then we see where it comes out. And maybe I am estimating too high because both the actual for 2025 and the actual for 2026, the estimated for 2026 are lower than budget. So it could be,
So this could just be your conservatism.
yes, it very
Maybe
well
we'll
could
have a
be.
happy accident.
Yeah.
More money if you available, I think. Okay.
Well, and I do want to also point out that, so we did the reorg in January, and so we now have Megan and Amanda, and they're running things a little bit differently than things that they've run in the past, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And so Amanda has been, people are laughing behind me. Amanda is looking at doing more contracts and having fewer staff we're not laying anybody off. We're not laying anybody off. I want to make that clear, but we're also not necessarily replacing positions if through attrition. We're looking at more contracts and where we can more efficiently use staff and where it's better to use contractors.
Okay. Overall, I'm really pleased with all the financial details.
Good, thank you.
I didn't find any other weird anomalies, not that they are hiding. But I thought it was really well.
It's a lot of numbers.
It is a
And
lot.
you're welcome to ask me questions later too, if something else pops up
That's all I had.
or you can send me something.
No, the only thing I noticed is I think this was the best snapshot of capital, forecasted capital improvement projects, so it's nice to be able to visually see what we're looking at in the future. So thank you.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, it's a big spreadsheet.
And it's a lot of them. I actually printed them out so because it's easier for me to see than on the screen. I was like, oh goodness, I'm unfortunately killing a few trees. I tried not to. Oh, yes, Kathleen.
Hello. I do hope that I can meet with you, Debbie, afterwards, just because I do have quite a few questions. But for the public record, can you go on page 39, can you go through the tolling revenues and kind of remind us about where the toll is going, how it's showing up on our finances, and how that money is going to be insured to stay with the bridge, so our constituents can see how you're doing the work, because it's been a lot of questions that have come up, quite frankly, in DC, and so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that what I'm saying is actually what you're doing.
All right, thank you. Yeah, because, and actually I didn't really cover, in fact, I almost forgot to put this number in because the toll bridge has kind of just been going along. But so there are, if you look at the top of page 39, when you're looking at I break the tolls into two pieces. So there's bridge tolls and then there's another line for the 2023 increase. The 2023 increase, as you guys all know, went into effect in September of 2023, and that all that additional revenue was pledged towards the new bridge, the replacement bridge. Primarily, it's there to provide a reserve fund, which is necessary in order to get financing. And they're looking at probably around $100 million in financing. So they need somewhere between 50 and 20 million sitting in a reserve fund that then will authorize them to go get to either get the TIFIA loan or sell bonds or whatever they ultimately need to do in order to get that financing. So I break that out because that second number, the 2023 increase number, ultimately gets transferred into a fund at the Bridge Authority. Now, when you created your intergovernmental agreement with the Bridge Authority, you said that money can only be saved for reserves. It can be borrowed basically or used for cash flow, but it has to immediately be put back into their savings account, basically, is what it is. So that's kind of the breakout of the two numbers. The rest of that is obviously much smaller numbers. There's the cable crossing leases, which is where the gas line and I believe there's an internet line also that goes across the bridge. We get lease revenue from that. The Port of Cascade Locks pays us some fees for helping them. We manage their breeze buy system for them. And then interest, and then some other little bits of money that come along. That $1 million, by the way, in 25-26 was for the bridge strike, that truck that hit the bridge, and that's the insurance settlement. And then you come on down, we have personnel that's directly charged to the bridge because most of the front office, that's all they do, is all the walk-ins practically are bridge related. And so that's what they do. There's the rest of the costs associated with the bridge. We have the back office system, which is up to about $1 million a year now for our back office system. So we have these other things that we pay out for that. And then there's also the transfer out that goes out to, as it says, the Bi-State Bridge Fund. That's what I call the fund. So for transparency, I take that additional toll revenue, put it in another spot to make sure that we're tracking it correctly, and then I actually transfer it to the Bridge Authority. So that is where that goes. The bridge continues to be okay, assuming that we don't have any big capital outlay on it, any major beyond the ones that are identified. And you can see those numbers that are under capital purchases for existing bridge, which is getting kind of towards the bottom. It's $2.34 million in the next budget. Those numbers are provided by our engineering firm, HDR. They put together, it actually goes out 12 years, I think. They put together an estimate of what they think we're going to have to spend on the bridge just to keep it up and running and safe and all of that. You will notice that I start to add some contingency in there as it moves forward, because my experience is that we always underestimate that. And so, although I have to say we have not spent a ton of money on the bridge over the last few years, it's been good because we've been keeping that. At the end, when the new bridge is built under the agreement that you have with the Bridge Authority at this time, this fund, if there's any money left in it, and the forecast makes it look like there will be money left in it, that money goes towards bridge replacement. We do have a $1 million loan with the Bridge Authority that will come out of it first. So that loan will get paid back, and then the rest of the money goes to the replacement bridge. So did that answer your question, Catherine?
It did, thank you. Is there any expected change in how we're viewing our financials once the bridge is federalized in July that we should expect to see, or will it just be all the toll will then just go directly into the fund?
Yeah, when it's federalized in July, that actually corresponds perfectly with the idea that we're no longer transferring money into the general fund. So all the money has to go towards the bridge. And that's what federalized means, is that all the money has to go towards the area that is federalized. Our airport is also federalized. So all money that is earned at the airport has to stay at the airport. And that will be the same with the bridge.
Will that money be going into the bridge operation fund, or will it be going into the HRW, Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority fund? Like, how will we see that being for our own documents?
It will stay in the bridge fund. So when you see this forecast, that's where it's going to be, is in this forecast. It'll stay in that because it has to be available for us to spend. If we did suddenly have a multi-million-dollar repair on that bridge, we would need that money for that. So we have to keep it available in order to spend it on the bridge if we need it.
Oh, yep, I'm aware. Yep, thank you. Thank you, Debbie.
The bridge is a big question mark, and I'm every year I worry a little bit about what it's going to cost us in repairs. But so far it's been good so far. So we want it to stay that way until this new bridge gets built. Okay. Thank you, Debbie.
Is there a succession plan for Debbie? Because I feel like she's irreplaceable.
There it is.
There he is, and I actually do talk about retirement once in a while. We're actually, so when we get more into the budget process, and actually I can mention it here because it's actually in the forecast. I am asking for another person in finance. Because with the reorganization, one of the things that we did was we've really beefed up all our other departments. And all those people that we used to beef up these other departments were people that I used to do extra finance stuff. And so suddenly I'm sitting here going, okay, they've stolen all my good people. And so, but yes, Yana Scoggins, who I think you guys know, some of you know, because she actually used to run the meetings. She has actually gone to school. She's gotten her master's in business administration, and she is just like moving forward amazingly, wonderfully. And at least that's my plan, is that Yana would be my replacement. And then I want to hire a person in the next fiscal year, not only because we need that person, but because we need to replace Yana, because I can't get anything done when she's not here. When she went on vacation and I didn't get anything done, well, because I'm trying to answer all the questions and all this stuff that I usually give Yana to do, I had to do. And so anyway, there actually is a succession plan.
Is there money in the proposed budget for the addition of another full-time?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So this forecast does reflect that.
Okay.
This forecast does reflect another position in finance that would be fully dedicated to finance.
I was shared with the internal personnel committee, if you recall, a few months ago. She's been wanting this person for a while.
Yeah. Well,
She's needed it.
I've been wanting to get a dedicated person because, as I said, we kind of have spread things out amongst people. But I want one, not only because I need that person, but again, for succession planning down the road, we're gonna need that here. The next item that's has my name next to it, I guess, is, I say I guess, I am the owner of the fees and the rates and fees schedule, but it really is put together by a lot of other people. So thank you, Daryl, and thank you, Megan, and thank you, Amanda, because this is kind of, everybody gets to have their hand in this. And actually a lot of it is Daryl and Megan, because it's all the mortgage and the fees down on the waterfront and all of that. And I should have said thanks to Jeff too, because it's the hangar fees. You don't want to be part of this, do you? It's the hangar. I know. Now I'm talking about where the money comes from. It's much more fun to spend money than it is to collect money. And so it has, it is, and you're not adopting it today, of course, you adopt it with the budget. But I just want to get, and you don't have to give me feedback on it right now, but I do want to get feedback on it. And we did Megan, I know we added, the fines for people that overstay their welcome
On the guest doc.
on the guest doc, because we didn't have any of that. As we go through and we find things, then we try to make some corrections, so we have added,
Also interstate bridge violation.
yes, and people that do things on the bridge that they're not supposed to do. So we added that one. Was there anything else that was new? I think everything else was either increased or something stayed the same.
We did add other concessions, a rate that we had been using but wasn't codified in the rate sheet last year, but for mobile concessions, did add that to the list. That's also new to the rate sheet. How is the guest doc being enforced? Isn't that on an honor system? It is on an honor system. We also have overnight security that logs activity each night. So many of the boats that are there.
But this gives us some leverage if people do overstay their welcome. Then it gives us some leverage to do something about that. But I think that was really all I had on the master fee schedule. So again, just looking for feedback before. So budget committee meeting, our planning session here today is late in the year. This is the latest it can be on, if we keep it on the third Tuesday of the month. And so today is the 21st. So we only have a couple of weeks until the budget committee meeting. So that'll be on May 5th. So, but I would appreciate any feedback, and then you'll adopt the budget and you'll adopt this in June. So there is some time, but it's helpful to get feedback if there is any.
I just have one quick question. Schedule. We've talked for years about things like mortgage rates, what's fair versus where can we generate revenue. The one that I sometimes struggle with, and is the only one that kind of jumps out to me still, is the event side. If we look back to those earlier numbers you were talking about, how much time staff is spending there, how much money we're spending there. Is $5,000 enough for someone who's commandeering that entire area, including getting parking in lot one and the grass area for the entire weekend? Is $5,000 enough? Does it cover, does that cover all of our costs, wear and tear costs, cleanup costs, all of our costs? Because you can also make an argument that a lot of these organizations bring people to town and spend a lot of money in businesses here, which is what we want. That's great. So all I care about is covering our costs associated. So does $5,000 do that?
So I'm gonna look at Harold for that question.
I think so. You know, what it would take for us if we had an event that took over the event site and then we didn't give them the parking, what we would have to do to manage the parking. And then the chaos that would ensue, you know, that's part of why we're at where we're at. And then also with the events, we're kind of at the tipping point of being able to go higher. If we go much higher, they're gonna pull out. And so they did pull out for the Orchard and Ale, which was the Cider Fest previously. It was the usually the first weekend in May. They've done that the last 2 years. And True West split up and now they're a different organization. And they moved that event up to Wham. And so we'll see how that goes. They haven't signed their contracts yet for fall and for Harvest Fest. And then for, what do we have then? They have another fest, hops.
Yeah.
And so we'll just see. I think they're testing the waters to see how it goes at Wham. But at some point, it's kind of, okay, do we want to have any events or not have events? That would be the question for the bigger events if we go a lot higher.
And we have raised it a lot, as I recall. I think you and I have talked the last few years, and you've said that we started out pretty low, yes, and I don't think it was covering our costs. But we have raised it quite a lot over the last couple of years.
Okay. that it?
Yeah,
For
that
the
is it for me.
fees, charges and rates? Catherine, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. Usually I do, but I think the rates are great. I think it's above projected inflation based on what I know for costs from the bridge experience and doing all that work. I think we're still meeting our constituents where they are and still covering our own costs. But great point, Commissioner Shepherd, making sure we're not losing money when we rent out our event site. I think that's a great question. Over. Thank you.
Key issues and projects for year 2027.
Great, thank you. So this is two parts. The first part is really an update on all of the projects that have been generated over the last few spring and fall planning sessions. And so there's a lot. I mean, you're looking at 20 projects, and there are very brief 1 or 2 paragraph summaries. You can certainly ask questions about those. We didn't focus a whole lot on that because that's direction that we've received and those are underway. And so, this is in the packet. It's a public document, but if there are any of these project summaries that you would like clarification or more detail on, you've been hearing about most of these throughout. So this is your time. I've only got a few minutes scheduled for this, but do you have any questions on the projects that are currently underway? Commissioner Thomas.
Yes, I have a question. Can we get an update on, I did notice the RFDI for the marina. Can we just get an update on that? Or when does that close again? Can you remind us for the record?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, so the RFDI is open until Thursday, so submissions are due by this Thursday, April 23rd at 5 p.m. I will just say, as we've been sitting in this meeting, I did get confirmation that we will be receiving one, and so we'll see what Thursday brings.
Who's going to conduct the interview?
I think that is up for conversation. It'll definitely be staff, and I think it would be up to the commission on desire to participate.
And how did you do it? How did the commission do it last time? Was that a full commission interview?
No, I don't think it was. I do think the commissioner should be delegating on that. But no, we don't need to be.
It's really nice to be volunteer.
I've got a question on the 12-year CIP and IIP for the bridge. What extent, I mean, I noticed this is coming from Michael at HDR, our engineer. To what extent is this his baby and to what extent is it ours?
I'll start it off and
Yeah.
Big or Amanda can correct me. I would say that this is primarily the same as it's been in past years. If you look in the assumptions portion, we're assuming that in September of this year, the Bridge Authority is going to be successful on that 26 BIP. But really what we've done here is simply carried forward on the projects that have been here in the past. So it's a 12-year CIP. So that 12-year CIP is continuing. We're still 12 years out. So we've added a year on the back end. So this project right here, in conjunction with staff and HDR, is really preparing for minor delays in bridge funding, but it anticipates that it is going to get funded. And what it avoids, the big project that it avoids, is the comprehensive bridge paint system.
So one concern that popped out at me about the CIP is that I noticed an inaccuracy. And then if I noticed an inaccuracy, I wonder how many other inaccuracies are hiding here. So if you look down, this is page 63, by the way. If you look down on the lift span maintenance and on the second item, which is lubricate wire ropes, So I just happened to be on the bridge the evening of October 7th and got to witness the lubrication of the wire ropes. But that's not noted that it occurred on here in October of 25. And so if it's just like it points out that's something that costs $50,000 and we should do annually. But if we're doing it twice a year because there's a tracking problem, that would be wasting $50,000. So I don't know if our maintenance staff has gone over this in detail and like actually corroborated when things have happened, and that might be a good idea.
Yeah, and I think we've had some.
I know
transitions.
I know we've lost maintenance personnel, so some.
So the quick answer to that is that we have biannual bridge inspections through ODOT.
Right.
Michael is aware that that occurred. Meg and I actually spoke specifically that occurred, and actually like who did it, how it was done, how best to do it going forward. It was covered, and it is one of those things that we will bring to ODOT during the new inspection to have it removed off the CIP.
Yeah. Is the new inspection going to be in July, or when is that going to be?
We are aiming for June. Megan and I have just come to learn the bridge is what they call a June bridge. Which sounds funny.
Fabulous.
Yeah. We've asked if this is a new thing, but the bridge is best maintained in the month of June. And it is recommended it stay in June. So we've asked for other options or choices, but she will stay a June bridge. So we expect that lubrication will be changed accordingly after the ODOT inspection.
Okay.
Annually.
Okay.
Commissioner Beaker, any other questions on projects underway?
No.
All right, well, you're not hearing any more comments on the projects underway. This is actually the more interesting part of the meeting, and that's the projects for consideration and discussion items. And so this is really where staff is going to be looking for more feedback from the commission, get your opinions, your input, so that and some of these are in preparation for budget season, which is just a couple of weeks away. So this is very timely discussion. But the first one that we want to bring to your attention is the introduction of a capital projects fund. And Debbie's already talked a little bit about that, but I'll let her give you a little bit more.
Thank you. Yeah, this one is probably more for information because I can't imagine that you're horribly opposed to it. But I think it will, when we go back to our transparency goal, I think that's really where this falls, because it does make it, because one of the things, and I talked about this during the forecast, is that we're relying on that money from, like, for example, our industrial buildings to help fund, we're relying on a net positive income to fund other areas that don't have a positive income. And so, but how do we know we're going to have a positive income when one year, like this year, we're replacing the roof on Jensen, and that might be $760,000, but next year we won't have that. So now all of a sudden we have $760,000 that we don't spend next year. So we had this huge fluctuation in revenue, and I really wanted to smooth that out. Kevin's been talking about smoothing that out as well. So we said, well, let's just do what a lot of other governments do and just put money aside every year. And then when roofs have to be replaced and HVAC units have to be replaced and things like that, we don't suddenly have fluctuations in expenditures for the cost center itself. So for the individual asset. So I put together the fund, and this is actually the attachment that has kind of the pink and blue shading on it is actually what I'm planning on using. And as it moves forward, it will track the amount of money that's contributed by asset And then it will have the additions that are made each year. And then if any money is spent on that asset, it will come out as an expenditure. And then you'll see how much money each of those assets have at the end of the fiscal year. So that's kind of the plan and the goal. If anyone does have comments or would like to see something else, then that's kind of why I was presenting this, was just to make sure that it's a new fund that you're going to see in the budget. And unless you tell me not to put it there, which again, I can't imagine. And so I just wanted you to know that it's there, and then also to find out if there's anything else you want to see with respect to this, as far as that goes. Oh, yes, Catherine.
Yep. So can I just repeat back what I heard you say? You're planning ahead because roofs cost money, and sometimes you need to replace a roof, and you're creating a new fund that we'll be able to track. So we'll have the administration fund, we'll have the bridge fund, we'll have a capital fund, et cetera, general fund.
Yes.
And each item will be putting in money based on their top line income. Is that correct?
It needs some more nuancing, but right now I'm kind of basing it off of how much money each building has, which is not the right way to do it necessarily. I didn't want to throw anybody negative just by creating this new fund. And so what we'll need to do, and I'll work with Amanda to do this, is go through and see, when do these roofs need to be replaced, for example? When do these bigger outlays, when are we expecting them to occur? And then go back and figure out how we get that money set aside so that when those costs come along, we have the money set aside for it. So there will be an initial transfer in, because we are starting this. I mean, the roof on Big 7, for example, was just replaced in 2020. So it's only 5 years old. It's probably got another 20, 25, maybe even, well, probably 25 years roughly. Anyway, whatever. But when we get to that point, we will need to replace it. The roofs on some of the other buildings are older, of course. And so we need to figure out where we're at and when are we going to need the money, and then find a way to make sure it's there. The other thing this does is, when we do look at projects and we say, well, this project would cost us, $2 million. I can say, yes, we have the money available, or no, we don't, because I know what expenditures are coming up in the near future. And so right now I say, well, we have this much money and most of it is available right now, but then maybe not in a few years when a roof needs to be replaced or an HVAC system goes bad. So it does help with planning on two fronts. It helps with keeping the expenses in the buildings more, not so, dramatic. And then also with how much cash do we have available to spend on other projects.
But the money would be, for clarity, my question is, would the money be earmarked for the building, like only Big 7 money could be used for Big 7, or would it be a larger fund that Big 7 could pull from it, or I guess not the airport necessarily, but I just want to make sure we're keeping it as open as possible and not necessarily unintentionally kind of boxing ourselves in where we can only use this capital fund for these certain projects. Is that your plan?
Yes, in a sense. I want to track it by building, because I want to see that we're doing a good job of seeing what these buildings are actually making for us. But it will be in no way technically restricted. So the commission will always have the ability. I mean, you can choose to spend it on something else if you so chose, because it won't be restricted. But it will be. It's more of a tracking tool. It's not meant to be restrictive. It's more for tracking.
So Debbie, another way to look at it would just be kind of the sub-account of our general fund, that we're just saying everything over here, we're just intending it to be for this general.
Yes. Okay. And that's actually how they look at it under accounting rules, is they look at it as a subset of the general fund.
Oh, okay.
One thing that in past budgets, a lot of the buildings had capital that never got spent. You won't see that anymore.
Okay.
Right.
Because those will go away. Because the next question was, well, what did you do to that building this year? Instead, some amount will be transferred into this fund and should be a little bit cleaner in operating fund.
And it should definitely smooth out these expenses. So the net income should be a lot more predictable going forward. That said, that actually leads us into the next topic that Amanda gets to talk about.
Nice segue.
And that's, I know it, we started laughing. Yeah, I didn't put the agenda together, so you can thank Kevin for that, but yeah, Amanda, I don't know, I started to say Amanda wants to talk about the Big Seven, I don't know if you want to or not.
Anyway, so.
We're gonna talk about it.
So, we, in particular, after touring the Big Seven building with Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Beaker, we toured a section of the Big Seven building that is essentially wet, that is unleasable at this particular time. During fall planning, we made a decision to investigate as to why Big Seven is wet, how we got there, how we stop it from happening, and kind of dig our heads out of the sand, essentially. So we jumped in, we had a building inspection, and the good news is it's not nearly as bad as what it potentially could be. And essentially it's not a structural issue as it is a drainage issue around the building, right? So the drainage system is just aiming at the building. And then there's a lot of little things happening that are allowing water intrusion. The inspection report essentially says that we need to find a water intrusion specialist, dig and get water leaving the building. So essentially redirect water away from the building and redo the ceiling to the building. So we no longer get that water intrusion. In the past, we have consistently done little things to stop water from entering, including what they pointed out on the east deck was to reseal up the outside to slow the water intrusion. These little fixes that stop things temporarily, but during every wet season, it essentially is getting worse and worse. This, to fix it is, somewhat of a substantial cost, something that further points to Debbie's plan of a capital improvement plan that allows us to slowly put away things when something big like this happens. We have reserve funds to take care of it. The inspection report laid out all sorts of things that need to be fixed with the Big Seven building, from what I'm calling critical, which is the water intrusion, to much less, things that we would look at upwards of 2035, which is redoing the plumbing, which is a long-term capital project we'll be able to plan for. So essentially what I recommend the commission talking about is, do we apply funds to get these big things fixed, these critical implementations, to then be able to stop the water intrusion, completely lease up the rest of Big Seven, and then further down the line decide how much money are we investing in this building over the next 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, and when is the appropriate time to let this building go on to its next owner. So obviously I wrote the memo, so you guys can kind of pick and choose what you'd like to discuss out of it, but that's kind of the bigger scope, is that obviously we have water intrusion. Catherine saw this kind of firsthand, how much we want to invest into these next steps, and how long do we hold on to it after.
What's the ballpark estimate for repairing water intrusion?
About $200,000 worst case. So the first 2 steps are about $200,000. If we have to go a step further than that, you're looking at an additional $200,000. I think we're very hopeful that the first 2 steps will take care of it. Then you're looking at repairing the damage inside, which, is more of a facilities job than it is, a huge capital project. That being said, we do have tenants already interested in that space, leasing it as around $25,000 a year to, you know, the continued growth of the building. I think it's really important to say that if we choose not to fix this and you guys say no, sell it right away, it's really important that transparency is mentioned, because we'll have to share this with whoever purchases it. My recommendation is that if we invest this into the building, we give the building time to recoup it and then pay more attention to selling it. Because it is an aging building, right? We're gonna have to keep planning for things. This does seem to be the only critical issue that would have to be taken care of right away to reach its full leasing capacity. And, you know, whether we pay for it and pay a buyer to take care of it, or pay for it ourselves and reap the benefits of leasing it for community benefit and long-term growth, is obviously a point of discussion as well.
Are we having any problem with mold in buildings?
So I think, I mean, yes, there's mold in that particular space because it's wet. The great news about that building is it's concrete. So the mold hasn't spread in any capacity. It's locked into the 2,400 square feet. That door is kept closed, so like it's not in the air. We have a great ventilation system. The ventilation system is off to that part of the building, so it's not spreading. So that's not a concern. When we go to treat that area, mold will have to be discussed and how best to remove it, replacing the windows, things like that, to make sure that we completely renovate that space to protect the future tenants.
So,
Yeah, I like the plan of moving forward with the abatement and recouping and seeing how it feels in a few years.
Sure.
is the $530,000 budgeted on page 19 under capital purchases for the Big Seven? Is that this or is that something else?
That is that.
That is this. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So.
And that takes into that worst case.
Worst case.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like really worst case.
Really worst
Well, I
case.
think well, I did leave some money. We had put money in. I meant to talk to you, Kevin, about that for the stormwater project with the city.
Oh, right.
So that money is still, that carried forward. There was 130,000 in from last year. I carried that forward and then I added Amanda's 400 onto it, which is the worst case scenario.
Correct. That's,
I always budget for worst case.
you know, if you've been to the Big Seven, obviously water runs downhill. That building sits on the hill. That's obvious. But it, you know, it was built 1920s, I think, if I remember right. So it wasn't really taken into consideration at that point, stormwater and rain and the Columbia River Gorge, we know it now. That water has to go somewhere downhill. It's pointed towards the building, essentially. In capital planning, when we purchased that building, should have probably taken into consideration what's the protection of the building on the outside, the ceiling, the water barrier. There's essentially not a water barrier left. So there needs to be one. And so that alone would take care of it. It's just farther, you know, worst case scenario of drainage away, proper ceiling doesn't stop it completely.
At least it has a new roof.
Yeah. Right, HVAC is doing pretty good too. So,
Our roof will need to be replaced someday.
yeah, but you know, this,
Sell it first.
the water intrusion is the only critical piece to make sure that this doesn't spread, that it doesn't get worse. You know, right now, the major affected area is that southeast side, that corner, well, what we call the 203 suite. But eventually that water is going to continue to enter in all sorts of areas because 2 of those levels are completely under that hill, right? So you walk into Big Seven, that's the 3rd floor. Everything below that is at risk eventually if it's not hill wet.
And as Amanda mentioned, the report that we got back from the inspection was for the whole building. That was for everything. So it would have noted if there were other major issues with the building. It wasn't focused on just the water.
Correct, it was the entire, it was a 200-page report, a very well written report. But you know, the other stuff, you know, I think 2028, 2029 projections were HVAC and things like that. But that goes in line with when the last time the HVAC was upgraded, right? We're not talking about a 1920s HVAC system. But we get to plan for the HVAC, we get to plan for these additional improvements, we choose to keep the building. This is the one that's critical in the sense of whether we keep it or sell it. It's gonna impact whoever owns it now or later.
I consider with the staff recommendation to fix it.
Okay.
Excellent, great, thank you for that. Next item here is the waterfront transportation improvements. So this is Megan's project and she has been working with Commissioner Shepherd on this. So Megan.
So yeah, again, this is for the waterfront transportation improvements. That's phase 1, there's the second Riverside Roundabout. Phase 2 is First Street realignment. So we're making really good progress on phase 1 and moving forward with that. We have a number of grants in the hopper, and I'm going to choose to remain cautiously optimistic that money will be coming our way through some of those. So I just really wanted to bring this forward as an opportunity to kind of frame out some of the budget assumptions and make sure that we're moving in the right direction in line with the commission's preferences. So taking a step back, we have, back in January, kind of outlined the updated cost specifically for the roundabout for full project completion, as well as some of the planning work going down to the shovel-ready project for phase 2, so First Street realignment. I know that there's been prior commission conversations and direction in applying the Panel Mill proceeds towards construction of these improvements. We also have, as I said, submitted a number of federal grants for construction funding, specifically to build grants, one for construction of the roundabout, the second to support that planning for phase 2, and then some congressional directed spending. It's about $1 million request for construction of the roundabout. Where this, where that leads us is we still want to proceed in getting a shovel-ready project, but we do have a gap in revenue, if you will, to complete the design phase. We will we'll be reaching the 60% design phase this summer, kind of rounding up this fiscal year. And then next fiscal year for the roundabout, the focus would be to bring that from 60% to a bid-ready package. And so the purpose, again, of this conversation is just to highlight that gap and have an initial conversation as we're making certain budget assumptions on the need for $1 million to be considered to bring both phase 1 and phase 2 to shovel-ready projects, recognizing that we have that sort of funding plan and strategy for federal grants coming on the construction side. But in order to be eligible to start to leverage those funds if successful, we would need to have a bid-ready document ready to go. So I know I outlined some more detail here in the memo. Happy to dive into that if you have questions, but I will pause there to see if there's any comment or discussion.
I'm excited to see it moving forward in the planning process. I'm always shocked to see how much it costs to plan. But I'm happy to support the project anyway. Catherine?
So the request, my understanding, the request is you need $1 million and we need the CDS funding and we need the build grant for this project to be complete, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the funding strategy assumes full award of both the build grant and the CDS funding for complete construction, in addition to the filling this $1 million gap for design.
So really, it's about $3 million that is needed for the total project, correct? If you add them all up and round easy rounding, approximately.
So it would be 1 million, to fill our design gap. And then we have the $3.8 million build grant request, and the $1 million CDS grant request, for completion of construction of the roundabout. So that's phase 1. And then phase 2 is, we requested a $950,000 planning grant under build, for which a $250,000 local match, was previously identified. And so in fiscal year 27, we'd be applying about half of that match, to carry the design forward.
Okay, so we're requesting, the Port of Hood River is requesting $3.8 million in build phase 1, $950,000 for phase 2 build grant, and then a CDS, which is federal money for phase 1 to completion, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this is going to be asked for also followed up in person for the trip that we're going to DC in May, correct?
Yes, correct. So yeah, the May trip, we'll be able to talk with our Oregon federal delegates about the importance of this project, and an effort to have them continue to be ambassadors and advocates on our behalf with USDOT.
In addition to the airfield terminal building.
Correct.
So one question I've got is this $1 million for the funding gap to complete phase 1 and phase 2 design. That's after the projected infusion of the 2.5 million or from the lower panel mill sale.
That's
correct?
construction.
That's construction.
And that's what I kind of insisted on.
Yeah.
When we first talked about this is,
right,
if we needed to come back and discuss design funds, we should do that publicly with you, not try to divert that money from anything but construction.
Absolutely. So, this phase 1 request for 3.8 million for construction, and then the $1 million. So that's around $5 million for construction. And then we're thinking adding the 2.5 million, making it 7.5, that's going to be enough to build the roundabout.
Yeah, the cost of construction of the roundabout is about 7.5 million, and that's inclusive of the direct cost of construction, in addition to the construction administration and management to move it forward. And part of the request for the CDS funding, that $1 million, is really to sort of draw down or kind of minimize the port's contribution and maximize up to that 80% federal contribution that is typical of a project like this. And so that would reduce the amount of proceeds from the Hanel Mill sale that would be needing to go towards construction should we be successful, that could be used for towards phase 2 as part of the transportation.
Okay. I mean, do you think in your experience that will give us a boost that we've earmarked a significant amount up front to then get additional federal funding and that extra commitment?
Yeah, I do think that is that shows very well in the federal world, particularly. So our project is actually located in a rural designated area per the build requirements, and so there's no match that's required. So it further increases our competitiveness by showing that we're putting in those local dollars in recognition that we didn't need to.
Okay, great.
I just have had quite a few meetings with these same people that you're all going to be talking to about this, and it is really important to have all your ducks in a row, like it seems like we have, to make these requests. I just would hate for a project that's had so much time and work put into it kind of stop for lack of potential federal funding. With that being said, what is the plan if we don't get any of this money to move this project forward?
Yeah, I think that would be another conversation for us and the commission together. But if we are not successful with the FY26 build, we anticipate that there will be, future programs like that. There have been kind of every prior fiscal year. And so we'll have the opportunity to do a debrief with USDOT and learn, what could we have improved in our application to be able to go again for a future year application. But I think it is a question then of not if we deliver it, but of when we deliver it, and when we're able to secure some of those additional federal dollars, or if there's another bucket of money to pull from that the commission will want to talk about. But I think we're really trying to focus on those federal opportunities.
Well, I appreciate all your efforts, and I know that the project is getting, with your involvement, I really appreciate all of the time you put in, because I know that it helps to have the support of the electeds at the table. So I appreciate your time.
Staff's putting in the time. They're doing a great job.
I know a lot of the constituents probably don't realize that this traffic change is necessary for further beautification and construction and development of Lot 1 and surrounding areas. So it's absolutely necessary for us to proceed. Or the best way for us to proceed. Yeah.
Okay, well
Well,
then,
thank you so much.
with that, we will proceed with the budget assumptions. We'll continue to bring updates on this project as it progresses.
And you're gonna stay with Megan. She's got the next one too. That's the marina planning.
We're gonna flip from transportation to marina. So I put forward a proposal to you for some marina planning. And when I say marina planning, I'm focusing specifically on the water-based component of it, recognizing that is part of the larger marina basin context. And so the proposal here would be to initiate some further sort of assessment and kind of master planning, if you will, for the marina to really develop something similar to what we have for the bridge, but develop like a capital improvement program for the marina, recognizing that it is a key revenue source, but more than that, it's a key element of the sort of community services that we, community assets that we provide, and part of what makes our waterfront so wonderful. So with this, I want to recognize again that Marina Basin includes a number of different components, be it, recreation, upland development, as we're talking about with Marina East and West, and the water-based marina itself. The moorage and the water dependent uses are really the primary revenue sources that make Marina Basin what it is. That said, the port does have a subsidy towards that. As we look at FY25 numbers, we were at about a $90,000 operating deficit to keep Marina Basin as a whole. And so looking towards the future of the marina, and in light of the marina survey that was done late last year, thank you to your direction in having us do that, really highlighted that one of the key desires of the community is more moorage opportunities within the marina. And so there's other ideas and nuggets of information in there, but the proposal here would be to first and foremost do an existing conditions assessment and just understand what are the facilities that we have today, what condition are they in, are there small incremental improvements that we can make to maximize sort of their useful life, or are there some bigger investments that need to be made to those? And then furthermore, in conversation with community and kind of convening a stakeholder group and community engagement, what's that next phase of the marina? So we've included some budget assumptions to bring in some support from our consulting or expert community to help us with this. But before we proceed, wanted to just kind of understand if this is in alignment with what the commission would like us to proceed with, and really wanting to hear, from you, the commission's priorities on the future of the marina, and again, focusing on the water-based side of things, and just get your thoughts on sort of the benefit or, questions or concerns around putting an effort towards developing a capital improvement program for the marina.
Will that be part of this strategic business plan also?
I think we definitely want to be partnered in with the strategic business plan, so the timing is right for this. I think this is where some conversations with our strategic business plan team will be helpful in understanding what level of detail is expected in the strategic business plan, and then how can this effort kind of feed off of that to maybe take it to that next level of detail in planning.
I think the strategic business plan should certainly call this out. There probably won't be a lot of detail put into it, but it would be a placeholder for guidance in the subsequent years.
I also want to flag that part of this work, we really want to ground, going back to our goals and priorities and our current strategic business plan. Is how do we do things in a way that are financially sustainable? And so we want to create this list of improvements that's tied to current or future funding streams, so that we're not just creating maybe a wish list that could never be delivered, but how can we identify what improvements can be tied to certain funding streams, or what funding streams do we need to start looking towards in order to make certain improvements possible.
Do we think that the construction of the bridge is going to create a long-term need to have a boat launch on the other side of the marina? I'm just thinking like where our current boat launch is located, where the bridge is going to be located.
A lot of users interact.
Yeah.
You mean on like the west side of the marina?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because if we think that that is something that eventually is going to be needed, or in the best interests of making the marina be accessible and useful to the most number of people, then we need to start thinking about how we're going to fund that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that, but that would definitely be something.
Maybe jump in, and so could Catherine, because Commissioner Fox, when he was on the board, really pushed that topic.
Yeah, I recall I mentioned that.
Yes. My understanding is in the last 18 months, that has not been a requirement or the need. The bridge replacement effort has not required that there will need to be a new boat launch during the construction period. Catherine, is that your understanding at this time?
That is my understanding. And if we have to remove that or move that boat launch, that's the reason that whole property is 6F. And that just boils my blood if I hear that we're going to be doing that, because that's taxpayer dollars that we took and now having to replace that back. So I think there's a larger discussion here. But I think the first question that you have in the packet, which is great, was what are the commissioner's priorities for the future of the marina's water-based infrastructure? I think we did a survey. Our constituents kind of told us what we want. My understanding is with the bridge being 200 yards downstream with the same tie-ins except for the light in, it doesn't seem to me, or my understanding is not that it should not impact the boat launch. So I don't know if we want to start talking about a potential, like we could create the problem ourselves. If you think about it by, stating it will, there will be conflict. But my understanding right now at this point in the planning, which is about to hit 60% in July, that boat launch is not needed to be moved.
Awesome.
But we should just take another federal grant and then, 60 years from now when something else happens, then we'll just all use that money. It's just, I don't know. I mean, Megan, do you have an idea of what you're thinking is best, or?
In terms of the boat ramp, we were not anticipating kind of making any movements there. But I think the key thing that we keep hearing is more individual moorage slips. You know, we have 168 slips today. We have a wait list of 115 plus. People have been on that wait list since 2020. So the demand is there, but the supply is not. And so I think that would probably be a key thing that comes up. And Daryl has her hand up and has a lot to offer to this conversation as well.
I was at a meeting with the bridge contractor and American Cruise Lines and Commissioner Fox, and it was several years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And the contractor did not at that time think that anything was going to drastically have to happen over here. And that if ACL had great concerns about being able to get in and out, and they laid out a whole plan with the areas they would need and how that would work. And they worked with American Cruise Lines and said that they would not be impacting the cruise ship traffic, and that if there were to be any impacts on the boat ramp, that they would be minimal, and work with the community on that. So that was the last that I heard, but they did not indicate any way that we would have to do it.
And if I can also jump in, because I was just double checking, when I talked about them taking out part of the toll booth in the westernmost 2 lanes, that's because they're expecting the impact to be more to the east of us, where we're sitting right now. The impact will be more to the east than to the west.
Great.
So I think that would go along with what Daryl is saying.
So Megan, I don't know if this is just my opinion,
Yeah.
but I think at a high level, we should be focused on how do we add those.
Starting with inventorying the condition of what we have.
Yep.
Go from there.
And I would, I agree. So for your second question about the planning focus on incremental improvements or both, so I would say that fortunately both, in that I think we should immediately be looking at more moorage. But I think we need to really look at the marinas and overall. We have seen, when I first joined the commission, we were doing projects, and as we were in the middle of projects, we were realizing that we had other projects that we were going for that, it was like the painting of the toll booth, we did a big float thing, or not a dock repair. And then, I feel like we're finding so much information out about the capital improvement projects. So I agree that the marina should have its own capital management program. And then I think we should look at the marina as a whole. Short term, yes, increase rentable spaces, and then long term, plan it accordingly, and then we can divvy it up as we get funding to really make that marina a beautiful public space for people.
What I would like to see is a master plan of everything we want to see upland and on water, just the whole master plan phased out. So future commissions know the direction and have vision for what's going to work as a whole, and phase in as we can what works best, our funding and our constituency.
Sure. Okay.
Well, it was such a helpful guiding document at the airport,
Yeah.
the master plan, and it was just able to tell us, like, we've looked at this in the past, and let's continue with this cohesive forward movement. We might have to pivot a little bit along the ways, but at least we have a goal.
Yeah.
But I would say the strategic business plan, in my opinion, should be pretty heavy on this.
Another
So
question.
I'm in DC, sorry.
No, please go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, ma'am. I apologize for interrupting. I'm in DC, and there's American Cruise Lines are here because I'm at the Pacific Northwest Waterway Association. It happens to be here. We're all, doing all these meetings together. I think when we do create the plan, I think it is valuable to us to talk to our current tenants too and see what their thoughts are. Because we only have our own ideas, and we may be able to talk to somebody and they may be able to state, you know, just for example, have you all thought about this? And not stating that we would ever do anything that would, you know, that they give us an idea, but it might just bring new ideas to the table. I don't know if we've sent the survey potentially. I know it's closed, but I don't know if there's a way we can potentially send the survey to the current tenants and just ensure they took it, and maybe create a new one that our current tenants have a idea and can kind of give comments. I just know American Cruise Lines have a lot of ideas. I'm just giving one example of a tenant. I'm not saying we should listen to them specifically, obviously, because we have 100, you know, we have a bunch of other people, but I don't know if they were aware of the survey that we sent out. And I just want to make sure that if we are creating a plan, it might be nice to hear from the current people that are utilizing and paying rent to us, what improvements they would hope to see, just to give us an idea of, you know, different ways we can improve. Obviously, staff has been great, and and we have a lot of engagement, but that was an idea that came up just in conversation with the people I'm with this week. So I just wanted to bring that up since you're asking about how we want to see it. I'm not a user of the marina, right? That's not me personally. So I don't have any specific ideas, and just listening to others, it's like, wow, I never even thought of that kind of thing. So just wanted to share.
I appreciate that. And that great segue, that's where I was going, was just kind of the commission's preferences or priorities, sort of, and how different users or stakeholders are involved in this process. So open to ideas or specific suggestions on that, in addition to what Commissioner Thomas.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with Commissioner Thomas, and that our stakeholders have great plans of what would work, so I'm all for involving them as much as possible.
Do you think the surveys are more valuable, or bringing back a marine committee to talk about just to be our stakeholder group?
Yeah.
I think of the general sending out a survey to all the tenants.
I think the survey that we did last year was really helpful, and we did send it out to all of the marina tenants. It was anonymous, so I can't speak to how many tenants did or did not submit it, but I do think that having a focused stakeholder group kind of specific for this planning effort would be a helpful part of the process. Because we, you know, ultimately we want to provide what, you know, the community is seeking, kind of meeting those needs in line, obviously, with commission direction as well. Yes, I think that the plan would be to create a focused committee on this effort, and want to tailor it to, you know, specific actionable items in the process. And so that will be kind of just part of the planning effort, is identifying where, at what points within the process are going to be most beneficial for stakeholders' time.
I'm just piling on Commissioner Thomas's idea. I like the idea of not necessarily sending a survey to them, but approaching ACL, approaching Lindblad, these other users directly, and saying, give us your ideas, and then take those ideas back to such a committee and really discuss them and hash them out. I think it's a great idea.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That gives great direction. Happy to answer more questions if there are, but I think with that we will continue to put a plan together.
We do have the last one. That's the airport development site. Actually, second to last one before we do the strategic business plan. So, Jeff, it might make sense for you to.
No, I'm not going to.
We're not going to go to the like.
I have a loud voice.
There you are. You're on.
Oops. Sorry. All right. Purpose of this memo is to kind of define what we're at with the airport. We've got a number of projects that we've talked about in the previous sessions. Definitely come to a place at the airport we're coming up against some extremely expensive, processes. The North Apron sites, Jeanette Road site and the terminal building area have a previous environmental assessment. I'm kind of jumping off the memo here, but have a previous environmental assessment where I will literally be meeting with the FAA tomorrow in regard to that, try to refresh that. And if we are successful in that refreshment of the EA was done 8 years ago. They typically last 5 years. They expect that you get your projects done within that environmental assessment in that 5-year window. We're slightly outside of that, and there's been no significant changes at the airport in that area. So we're asking for them to extend that for us and allow us to just continue our development on that side of the property. The exhibits that are attached with the memo also define some of the other areas on the east end of the airport that have never had an environmental assessment, and will probably have some fairly robust conversations to try to get through. We have to prove that we can naturally infiltrate on site any runoff water from those projects, and if we can, then it eases our burden. If not, we will definitely have to go through some fairly extensive environmental assessment for the airport projects. I did put some of that together in the exhibits. The numbers are very broad in those assessments, just because there's so many unknowns within that process. Probably the first one on the west end of the airport is the fire apparatus turnaround that gives us the soonest buildable lot. Is between the yellow hangar and the blue hangar there. The county has a dedicated site there for a turnaround in that grass field, which isn't very conducive for turning around at this point. So I've met with the fire marshal, met with the county about moving that down to where the existing maintenance shed or maintenance building and FBO are at, and there's existing pavement. So the costs are most likely quite high for what it's actually going to cost to accomplish the project, but it is very doable, and everybody was in agreement that we should be able to move that. That being said, when we get that done, we'll have another buildable lot, and we do have a couple of individuals interested in building on that lot. So that is highest on my priority list at this point, is to create that space. Do you have questions, where?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you would go to the map.
Yes. That would be this grass field here.
Okay.
This is the yellow hangar that the airport owns. This is a privately owned box hangar here. They presently have on the example, we'll highlight it green, has a horseshoe shape in here where fire apparatus would do a turnaround. The proposal is to put it down here. We already have enough existing blacktop in place, so all we would have to do is just put the signage and just have it marked to where we didn't have people parking in the middle of the turnaround.
Okay.
And from there, the next piece of this development would be the opportunity to build a hangar and then get off of the septic systems and onto the public sewer system, which has its own set of complexities as well. Projects we do have going, T hangars are well underway. Apologize, I locked myself in something.
And how many hangars?
10 units.
And they're all filled.
We have a waiting list that should have zero issue getting those filled. There's about 30 people on the waiting list that I've been able to just either have a verbal conversation or we've had emails. And then we continue to get people calling and getting on that list. So there is definitely a huge vacuum available in that market. So yeah, so that would be the next piece, is if we have any ability to build additional hangars in the future. It's expensive. We are definitely seeing some better. The bidding environment is changing fairly rapidly. Right now, we've got contractors actually calling, looking for work. So I'm excited for that. It'll afford us better opportunities in the future, but it is still very expensive and comes with unless you've got a lot of grant money tied to doing one, the buyback is about 20 years. Funds like Connect Oregon and whatnot have opportunities for us to bid on or to apply for grants for those. And get it.
Jeff, do you want to just touch on the Jeanette Road?
Yes.
There's been a lot of talk, and it's been, I think, it mentioned at prior planning sessions, and just the recommendation on investing in that site.
The Jeanette Road site has, the infrastructure was put in with the, I believe it was 2018 North Apron rehab. So we have the area where the FBO terminal building will go, as well as some buildable sites on right up against Jeanette Road. We've explored a number of different options with the public, with developers. The most favorable that we've come back with is a couple of T-hanger or a couple of box hangers facing north and south due to some pushback in regards to having west facing doors on it. Speaking with the fire marshal and the county again, continuing the parking lot across, let's go back to the map. Taking this piece of blacktop and coming all the way across, putting an emergency access gate here, not a daily thoroughfare, but just an ingress egress for fire apparatus for emergency services. Finish this parking lot off would be my suggestion, and make this to where we would put a hangar here facing south and another hangar here facing north. And all of this becomes leasable space, even though it doesn't have buildings full length, it would be dedicated space between those buildings. And so then the tenants who build on those sites would pay for that space because it is dedicated to their hangars. We don't have a loss in revenue based on lack of buildings. It would still be nicer to have more buildings, but we haven't had anybody that's willing to build a door facing west on those. That is the other, this is a fairly light lift as far as getting the pavement. We've already got drainage was put in. So all they really need to do is pull the top gravel off, regrade it, and pave that, stripe it, and put the gate in. And I do have a cost estimate in the exhibits on that. I've made 3 calls on that for different verbal estimates, and Kevin and I were talking about putting an invitation to bid out so we can get that going. And then that would be ready to, I believe we've overcome all the hurdles with the county now, and should be able to tell somebody who's their building permit and put it together. Questions, that's probably the easier way for me to proceed.
The only question that I have is for Kevin. We've had Jeff on now for about a year, correct? And it's my observation that he brings a significant amount of benefit and focus to the airport. And so I just want to make sure staff is happy with the direction and we find it, a valuable addition to the team.
Yeah, this, I would say, not to make Jeff's head so big he can't get out of the room, but I think his relationships with the FAA have really been exceptional. I think those relationships, I don't know if have ever been here with the port, at least since I've been here in 2017. So I think that's really critical. Also on the grant reimbursement side, I believe that's taken some effort off of your team's time. So
I appreciate that.
So my opinion is that on that federal grant program, we've really got a good service here, in addition to the fact that he's the first airport manager that's been a pilot. So that actually is very important from a perspective of development on the site. So we're currently on contract, but we do need to come bring another contract to you to renew that. And so we certainly want to maintain this relationship for the coming years. So certainly would be my recommendation.
It's exciting for me to see all the
progress on development and improvements. When I first started on the board, all I heard about was noise complaints. So
Still get a few of those, but not nearly as many. I think a lot of that goes back to what Kevin just said in the relationships. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is that my experience in the pilot world and in having been at the airport with the FBO previous, I mean, there's just a lot of relationships. Not everybody's gonna like what we do and how I do it or any of that. I mean, if rates have to change, those kinds of things, but you still have to have this conversation. It changes everything pretty quick.
Catherine has her hand up. Commissioner Tom.
Thank you again. Sorry. Jeff, not to poke holes in your numbers that you've kind of put together, but what's the likelihood you're going to get a category exclusion from the FAA for an EA for the environmental review? I mean, I think that's my first question.
Can I get back to you on that tomorrow afternoon?
I'm sorry?
I think, can I get back to that on tomorrow afternoon after I'm done talking with?
Yeah, of course. I think these numbers are really dependent on, just coming from where I'm sitting, you know, my firm does environmental consulting, we do the permitting, we do the categorical exclusions, we have that. I think the numbers are, there's a range, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners have noticed that. And I just think if we're expecting to have a category exclusion, that's, you know, a huge cost savings. And then if you kind of look down lower, there's not a category exclusion for another EA that's about to be run. That's $150,000 projected cost for that. And I just want to make sure we're really kind of seeing what it's going to take to get this done, because the last thing we want to do is have a half built or half put together idea that actually costs 4 times more than we actually are considering, because permitting right now is taking longer, given, you know, people are not in the current seats in the federal, you know, the agencies. And so we just need to be really smart about the time spent and what we actually think is possible. Because I think right now getting a category exclusion is potentially likely, but you got to know, you really have to have that story of why you fall into that case. I'd be glad to talk to you offline about that, Jeff, and just kind of go through. I'm sure you're very well versed, but if there's any questions on that, please do reach out, because I think if there's any way to kind of limit the bureaucracy that goes into the permit writing and the permit acquiring, I think that we as a group, it would benefit us in the long run. So, and for all these ideas, I think it's great to bring. Go ahead.
Oh, I'd say I would love to have that conversation. I did think most of those numbers were through Precision Approach Engineering, our engineer on site, you know, and just I walk him through the dream of what it just kind of a dream board for me is where do we want to go and what's it going to take to get there. He gave me the ranges of what he expected, but yes, I do understand it seems horribly high, but then at the same breath it feels low on a lot of what we're actually seeing.
I will say that exclusion that you're talking about for the north ramp, I think we have a legitimate shot at it, just because we developed the north ramp in 2018, and there was this plan attached to that in receiving those monies that we were going to develop the north ramp and move the fuel. And we've been showing progress. We have moved the fuel, and we are proceeding with development. Like we're trying to do the things. So.
And we haven't changed any of the projects. All of them. Right. We're doing exactly what's in the master plan and all the same projects. It's been a slower churn. And so that is definitely what my conversation will be.
I wouldn't mind, I'm just going to share my take with the rest of the commission on the airport and all these different sites real quick. Jeff did a good job of outlining some of the potential costs and showed that developing this space here on the east end, this space here on the east end, and this space here over on the west end are all pretty expensive for a very modest return. So right now, I don't think those are good priorities or good places to spend money. And I also think in the future, a lot of times when we do infrastructure work, the FAA pays for 90%. Then we can often get 9% paid for by the state, and our contribution is 1%, which is an amazing deal for investment. And so if we are looking at maybe adding taxiways or something down here, my thought is, well, let's just wait until some future years where there's funding available to do those things and assistance. In the short term, I'm supportive of the effort to move the emergency turnaround down here. Primarily because I don't think it would be very easy for an emergency vehicle like a fire truck to turn around in the existing area that's designated. It's like a field. And I guess I'm hopeful that it won't cost as much as you estimated to move it down here, because they're not actually creating any new pavement, or it's just some signage. So I think doing that and opening up more development space down here is a smart investment in terms of what we're leveraging. And then up here, I think adding the pavement here and strip of parking, that's going to be the incentive needed to get this developed and get us revenue, also makes sense. So those are the two things that I'm looking at this holistically. I'm very supportive of these things, but the other things I am not. I think they're not worth it. It's not right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
The other one that I talked with Kevin about quite a bit was there's really a need, and it's a very difficult ask, because when you ask for an environmental assessment over the airport and over the whole property, the FAA wants you to identify areas that you're actually going to actively produce something in the next 5 years. It would be wonderful if we had that assessment for that whole east end of the airport. Unless we have some magic good money, there's the chances that we actually get to produce anything on that east end is very, very slow in the next 5 years. So one of the things that's been nice working with the FAA and some of those relationships is having almost like a pocket project, something that we've done the perk testing on the east end. We know that we could, where the gliders are at or wherever, that we could do a project there, because we've already invested some of the time and the effort to know that we can naturally infiltrate. So now we just have to ask for the exception for the CADX and put that project through. So trying to have a couple of those things just to where we got funds donated to us this last year from another airport that had expiring funds. We got $50,000. There's airports, I learned of one after the fact, they gave away $600,000. That is a huge project.
We're trying to be friends with them.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to stay way ahead of some of those relationships where if we've got a pocket project and everybody knows that we'll take expiring funds because we have a project ready. Those are the things that really catapult us to the next revenue stream.
So are you saying that there's something beyond the Jeanette Road and the turnaround that we should be sort of like trying to lay some groundwork for?
Yes, I am. I really feel like we need to, on that east end, I feel like we need to potentially have some perk testing done to see if that ground is going to be able to naturally infiltrate. If we were to build that row of equipment.
So here's a question. It says here for site preparation for the glider club, that area between $475,000 and $783,000. The testing you're talking about costs approximately what? That's not that whole thing, is it? That's
Not at all.
okay.
That is literally, I haven't called anybody to ask what perk testing is going to run, but you're talking somebody going out and digging 10 holes with a backhoe.
Okay.
And determining what the ground can absorb. If it'll handle the 100-year storm. If it will, then we start into the next phase of, okay, let's be prepared for the project. We know we can naturally infiltrate. It's going to change that number from the higher end. That's definitely in Catherine's wheelhouse on that. If we can naturally infiltrate on site, we're going to save so much in having to treat water that's going to lead the problem.
So Jeff, do you need commission, you just need a recommendation from the commission, or it's just informational?
I think what I'm hearing, if I could just jump in, I'm hearing, let's go ahead and move on Jeanette Road.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's work on the roundabout and then do some perk testing on the east side.
Is that consistent with what you think is best bang for the buck and worth doing?
Yes.
So I'm supportive of all that then.
So there's this little red paint and at Jeanette Road and the fire trucks will just turn around.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
It's probably literally some driving on
It's probably more so, please don't park here.
Yeah.
it. Yeah, please don't
other
park here, and if there's any county permitting.
Lights,
if
yeah.
they're going-
We do have one more item, so we could get Flex Consulting up.
Yes, please.
Hey, guys.
This is my kickoff.
2 minutes, just kidding.
Yeah, if you could head up to the.
And Patty, can you run through the presentation?
Yeah. Is it okay if we take a 2-minute break?
I don't mind. I'm not in charge, so.
Long meetings.
All right.
Where's dinner?
All right, so we have Brian Points here, and so Brian, with no further ado, go ahead and start the presentation.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, commissioners, for having us. We're going to give you a brief overview of the aforementioned strategic business plan and the process that we're going to be following over the next few months. Before I go any further, we left some further gifts for you all on the table over here. I did check the Oregon revised statutes, and they are less than $50 in monetary value.
Yeah.
Totally safe territory on that. Next slide, please. So this is our whole team. Right now, you're just seeing myself and Carson, and these are the people that you'll see most often as we get to subsequent parts of the process and when we'll be engaging with you. But our team, based mostly in Eastern Washington, North Idaho, is all at the ready. So we have our team, our economists and analysts and planners and engineers. We put together this team in partnership with JUB engineers out of Tri-Cities to make sure that we could hit on all the different topics that might come up in the course of this plan. Here's a bit about our past project experience. Those first 4 are all Points Consulting projects. The last 2 are a couple that were conducted by JUB engineers. The most notable one that we should note here is the strategic business plan projects that we've done for the International Port of Coos Bay and for the Port of the Dalles, both within the past 5 years. The state of Oregon's process, ORS 777, is all about ports and strategic business plan requirements. Our goal is to meet all of those compliance requirements. Obviously, but we just consider that the first step. We really like to work with communities and ports that really want to use this as a guiding document for the next 5 years. So that's what we managed to do with those past clients. We've also been involved in multiple other projects, Port of Arlington, Port of Whitman, for example, working on highest and best use and property evaluations, other things of that sort, just so you know a bit more about us. And now I'm going to go a little bit into scope of work without getting into too much detail on it. As you review that, a couple things I want to point out. Our goal is to facilitate a process that helps you all get the goals and action plan that you want. So we're obviously going to have ideas as we go from our experience and our observations, but we're not coming to plant some foreign ideas here into a document. We're working with you to determine what you want to get it into that document. The question came up earlier of what's the appropriate level of detail for this. We're just trying to frame your projects for success and not put you in a straitjacket. So somebody mentioned that earlier, what place does this have in the strategic business plan? Anything that you're confident is going to materialize in the next 5 years needs to have a mention in there. That's going to ease the process for you, both as a guiding document and in terms of public perception. They're going to say, oh, they didn't just come up with this on the fly. They've been planning this for years. It is difficult to get really into the weeds on it, because at some point it becomes issues of, some of the things we were talking about earlier with, where's the water get channeled and how much is that going to cost? That's not the level of detail we're going for. We're just going for what are the properties, what are the high level goals for those properties. Some of the other things that are mentioned in state requirements that we're sure to hit on in terms of goals and plans. So both of those topics: property goals, management goals, marketing goals, environmental goals, financial goals. And those all have to also have a corresponding plan plus a capital improvements plan. So those are some like the core topics that we'll be touching on. And this is the process that we're going to follow to do that. We will do stakeholder engagement. This is one of the parts of the process that we're we're holding on to a little bit loosely. Basically, we have a budget to spend on meeting the public on the topics that are important. And we'll work with staff to precisely figure out when and where to do that. Next slide, please. So as we get in towards the tail end of this project, these aspects on task 4 here are, a lot of this is the interaction we have with commissioners. So next time, Carson will go over this in a minute, but next time you see us, we'll be talking about mission, vision, values, and SWOT analysis. Time after that, we'll be talking about goals and actions. You all obviously have a lot of things to think about and decisions to make, so we're trying to keep those sessions tight and come well prepared with material to help it move crisply. Then we work on the implementation plan, and then there's an additional aspect to this that's not required within a strategic business plan, but through negotiations after being notified that we were the apparent winners for this project, we added in an economic impact study. You all had one of these done by a different firm a number of years ago, and it's a good time to update that. So towards the tail end of the project, we'll be working on that as well. That's something that we do all over the country as well. Next slide, please. So here is the overall project timeline. We didn't give you the printed out 11:17 version because you already had a lot of those on your desk, but we do have one if you do want to see it. Here's the dates that you generally need to know about. So we're starting in the spring. We're going to be ending in the late summer with that final SVP and the economic impact report. And you see some of those commissioner workshop dates that are placed into the plan here. And with that, I'll pass it over to Carson. We'll go into more detail on those things.
So Brian just went over the kind of overall broad timeline, but these are the real dates that we're hoping you all will be very interested in. And hopefully you'll be able to pay attention to them a little bit closer. But so obviously we're planning to do about a couple workshops with you all to make sure your input is heavily provided in the process, because it's supposed to be a guiding document for you all and have all of your goals and actions that you want to see taken in place as well. And so some of those dates would be, obviously we're here today, this is kind of a kickoff meeting for the project and the spring planning meeting. And then we'll be back in a month in May for the May commissioners meeting. And this is where we want to kind of workshop, like Brian was saying, our SWOT analysis that we're coming up with, and also the mission, vision, values, and those sort of things. So you have those anchor statements and some of those big overarching strengths and weaknesses that you all have to go forward. And that's part of our process that we took today. Is we went around and toured a bunch of the facilities and some of the town, and that'll give us a really strong foundation to start on the SWOT analysis. But we want your input as well, since you guys have been here a lot longer than us. So that'll be one thing. And then we'll take a couple months to kind of put everything together and come back and present you all with a draft version of our goals and actions and the real implementation plan for all of those things, bringing together the stuff at the airport and the marina and all of the other buildings that you all have and the actions that need to take place, along with the capital improvements plan, and show you some of those draft actions and goals, get your all sign off for that, do another workshop with you all, add more onto there as needed. And then we'll come back again in September and do a final rollout and presentation to you all. And so hopefully by then you guys will kind of know what's all gone into it, because we've been here a couple times. And then the other thing to mention is the public engagement that we're doing. As Brian said, we're still going to work through with the staff on exactly what that will entail. But right now we kind of have a broad vision of open house, public meeting, some direct tenant engagement, seeing what they might all need, and kind of trying to piggyback on other community events to get engagement from folks that visit the facilities frequently. And so these were a couple other additional optional tasks that we had included in the original scope of work for the proposal. And as you can see, the waterfront recreation enhancement plan was a part of it, and that kind of fits into the whole conversation we were talking about earlier of the marina kind of master plan type of stuff going on. And that's, so like Brian said, for the strategic business plan right now, this is bringing everything together in one guiding document. And so what this waterfront recreation enhancement plan is kind of similar to that, but very more focused on the marina and the waterfront and that sort of thing. So that's potentially an option to add on to the project as well, because our team has the capability and capacity to do that. And then the other option was the legacy bridge strategy and governance transition. So with the changing of the hands from the bridge to the authority and the toll fees going to the authority, and kind of trying to create a more written out plan and process to distribute those tasks over time to the authority, so that you all aren't also paying, but also no longer collecting those tolls anymore. Just trying to put that all into a cohesive plan to move forward. So that's an option as well, that we could tag on to this project. So I know there's been a lot of discussion so far, and you guys have been asking some questions, but we have a couple questions for you all, if that works, if you all have time. So kind of our first question here would be, to what degree do you all want to weigh in on the specific components of the strategic business plan? So as Brian went through the scope of work, that's kind of the needs assessment, which is all of the data on the area going in, and then the action plan and the actions and the goals, and the economic impact assessment and those types of things. How much input and the SWOT analysis, how much input do you all want on the specific pieces?
I'll say, I'll go first. Well, I look at this is a partnership with you guys. You guys are the experts. You do this. I would imagine that you have ideas of things that we need to work on. I do know we have a nicely active commission. We like to participate, but we also don't want to micromanage. And we have an excellent team as well. So I would say high level, we don't really need to get into the super weeds. But it's partnership. We don't want to just direct you guys and say, this is how we see them. I don't think any of us want that responsibility.
Very specific components I see as the things that we legally need to have in there, and it's not really the creative like minutia that we would be more active in.
Yeah.
I'm struggling a little bit with the vagueness of the question. I wouldn't want to send you guys off to work on this and you're like, here, commission, here are your goals. And we're like, what? Can you give some examples of specific components?
Yeah, so component one would be like the SWOT analysis. So right now, after our full tour of the community that we took today, we've got a lot of ideas. And so trying to put those together in a cohesive list. And then right now the plan would be to come back, present those to you, and then you all get to say, yes, this is good. No, this is not, take it off. Here's something else that you guys forgot.
That sounds great.
Cool.
The way that we've done this in the past is instead of showing up for a workshop with a blank canvas, we'll write down ideas for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We'll work through that with this awesome team here to make sure they're in agreement with those. And then we'll take those to you in a session and give you some markers so you can say, yes, I like this. No, I don't like this. Red line things.
I like that approach.
Is there a way for us to see with the screen if Commissioner Thomas has something
Right
to
here.
add?
I have no questions at this time.
Thank you. Okay, great. Well, so I guess we didn't dive into the details of this, but for the engagement, we're planning to do interviews with several groups of folks, specifically tenants, city officials, county officials, team members here, other folks that are utilizing the properties. So that, and then also workshops with you all, and then the public meetings, as I kind of mentioned. Does that sort of mix of engagement feel appropriate for this project to you all? Are there other ways that you think we should engage the community?
For a public meeting, is that more of sort of like an open house style?
I'm thinking specific groups.
Yeah.
You might want to.
Yeah, I made a big list of groups, which I'll share with you, so you can
That's
think
That's what
about.
we need.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Thomas, can we?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chair. Can you remind me if this is a time and materials contract or is this a lump sum?
This is it's a lump sum fixed price. And we have a particular budget for the community engagement tasks that, as long as we stay within that, then we're happy to do any various different types of community engagement.
Great. I kind of think that, you know, if you're here going, oh yeah, we should do 150 meetings, and you're like, wait, hang on a second, you know, we need to use the taxpayer money, you know, appropriately, obviously, for this process, getting the most out of it, but at the same time, understanding that we have an outstanding staff who have a lot of who have a lot of experience. And so if we can, well, you know, for strategic plan, as you can see from the spring plan, we have a lot going on, and I just would hate to pull staff out of their everyday job that they only have, you know, they have this much time to get a million things done. And so I just don't want to add to staff's plate. And at the same time, that was my question about, you know, if we're adding on to a contract that we had agreed to, I just want to make sure we're playing within the realm of possibility. To my fellow commissioners, in the past, because I've never done this, has a commissioner been involved in every step of the process, or is it mostly they come, present, we give feedback, they edit, and then we finalize?
Yeah, I would say it's typically the latter, where we kind of put the materials together. Great. And we come and present and ask for feedback, and that's worked for us so far. So unless you guys want something different, we could try that, but it seems like that would work.
No, I think I think, you know, if it worked, why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So thank you.
Yeah, I just don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Let me put a slightly different spin on the last question on that side. We've heard today about the marina survey, right? We've heard about all these different forms of engagement that already happened. Some of this, we're just now digesting this. Are there particular pockets of the community where you feel like you all have had weaker engagement that's particularly important for us to get, either to hear their perspective or to ensure that we have buy-in when this comes out, or both of those things?
I think that's probably a longer discussion that we can have with you between, maybe we can email our thoughts to you, but I do think that the thing personally, I just know that any engagement that we have with the community, I want to ensure that we don't come in with like a pre-notion of what we want the answer to be, and we inadvertently guide people into that. I really want to get their perspective on that. I don't want to accidentally sway the community with our desires. So we're just fine.
Yeah, good point.
To answer your question, though, I do think a lot of our past surveys or meetings have been with things that I've heard tonight: users, which you would expect, tenants, which you expect. Well, this port has properties, has things going on over this community. I bet you we don't hear from half the people in this community, and the ones that aren't using the port on a daily basis, but maybe, you know, go through the property, or they have a family member that works, but it's not them directly. I don't want to call them non-users, but people that aren't actively engaged with the port on a daily basis is a huge majority of this community, probably. So I think when we do hear from groups, we hear from the same small group a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, depending on where we are talking about, airport groups or down here groups or whatever we hear from.
Yeah.
So.
It's more creative ways to have broader sweeping engagement. Is that what you're saying?
I think we're ready for the next slide. Yeah.
How about time? So if you notice the dates for the commission meetings.
Yep.
So the idea initially was that there'd be some period of time prior to board meetings. Is that what you would prefer? Or would you, and what are the time limits that you want for the front end? You know, for the strategic business plan sessions? Do you want to give some guidance as far as, you know, do you want 30 minutes? Do you want 4 hours, somewhere in between? I think that kind of guidance.
I would prefer.
Those are
what
options.
You guys experienced is a good time frame because you've done it over and over. So.
And what have you found to be the right time?
If we come prepared and we're not trying to pack too much in, 60 minutes is the max. And if that usually, if you go over that, you start having flagging interest.
Great.
Sometimes it's faster. You know, we've got these 2 key dates. If we can schedule other meetings if need be beyond that.
One thing to note there, from past history, we have a hard time getting a quorum in July and August around here, with especially those of us that are
Seniors.
seniors, younger kids, or July meetings, summer meetings are hard.
Yeah, that's true.
For everyone to be in town at the same time.
July sometimes we sometimes don't even have July meetings. So
Right. Good. It's good. Good to know.
And I think that all of us, I mean, I don't mind doing daytime workshops that are outside of our scheduled meeting if that would allow more people to do, for an hour lunch or something.
Gotcha. Okay.
Focus in on stuff.
Okay. That's great feedback.
Do others feel the same way about that?
Yeah, that's good.
That's fine.
Okay. Right. Next slide, please.
Yes. Okay, this is a great one. Are there sensitivities or community dynamics that should be considered early on in this process?
I think the big one, honestly, it just comes right off the top of my head, is that our mission is pretty clear that our focus is economic development and quality of life, right? But if you read ORS 777, the reason we were created is to make jobs. So I think the sensitivity in this community, because we are a recreational destination and both for tourism and for people that choose to live here. So quality of life is often like a really big thing. And so we're always on the port, we're kind of balancing that. We're trying to create jobs and create diverse jobs, but at the same time, pay attention to quality of life issues. So I think that's the biggest sensitivity or dynamic, elephant in the room, balancing those things. And we'll be looking at a project and people are like, well, that's ugly, So those are the kind of concerns and like how trying to weigh those and be conscientious and still do a good job. I mean, that's the big challenge. So, and I don't know if you guys have done something like this in a community quite like this. So that's one thing.
Certainly a different design aesthetic here than in some of the other communities. So we've worked in all kinds of different places. Not necessarily poor type communities. Yeah, it's good insight. Thank you for that. I think that's a intention with all ports in a sense, because there is always kind of this interest in like more trails, more recreation, boat ramps. And we also have to finance that somehow, right?
Well, and that's what I was going to piggyback with that is not only do we want to make things beautiful and fun, we are under severe financial constraints. Our tax base is nothing or almost nothing, and our revenue sources are. So that's another big challenge of base is because there's, we have these world-class recreational things that bring in international tourists. And so there's an expectation to have world-class facilities and support for those And in an ideal world, we would love to have that, but we have to come up with creative ways of how to actually get it done.
Um. Yes, so are you all interested in including either of those additional scope pieces? That would be the kind of legacy bridge transition plan or tagging on kind of the marina master plan type deal.
And before, I'm going to put a quick footnote on that. So right now, if you recall in our budget, we had $125,000 budgeted for this project, with $50,000 coming from the state of Oregon to offset the costs. Right now, we're just under 125. We're like 124 and change. So absolutely, we've got opportunities to amend this contract, but just realize that it's outside the budget.
Does that include the economic impact, or is that would be?
That does include the
Okay.
economic.
That's the only thing I'm adamant or really passionate about is the economic impact. Beyond that, I'm kind of ambivalent.
I would say personally, the bridge strategy, I think that we have an excellent team in place. I think we have a long-term conversation, partnership with the Bridge Authority on how that transition is gonna take place. So, and I don't know if the waterfront one should be something that should go under this. But that would be the one that I would say, if we're gonna add something to it, some sort of a waterfront master plan or marina master plan, or enhancement plan, I think would be great.
I kind of agree with what Heather said earlier about being more comprehensive about planning down there. So something we're gonna do anyway. Why doesn't staff chat with them, see which way they want to do it? Because we're doing it anyway, one way or another. Where's more cost effective to do it?
And I agree with Christy that the bridge part would be a little redundant because there's so many people working on that. And maybe actually just waste of time, waste of our money anyway. But the waterfront marina, I would love to see if that's something that want to go outside the budget.
I'm happy to delegate. I mean, I feel like the decision on the waterfront, it can be up to staff. I mean, and your guys' collective opinion, like how you want to do it. If you want the help and you think that's a better use of money and stuff, or if you want to keep it internal and not, like, I'm fine delegating that.
Yeah.
So that's my thought.
So
What do you think?
I think it would be helpful to have the expertise of this team, planning. And I think it would be helpful to have it be sort of one and the same process with our current strategic business plan and what's next for the marina.
So if I hear consensus that's something that we can work on, bring back as a contract amendment.
Yeah, we're talking about the marina, correct? I mean, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, so what was up on the screen was more of a recreational waterfront from the hook to the marina. And so what I'm hearing is not necessarily that, but focus on the marina planning that Megan brought up earlier this afternoon.
And upland too, I think. I like the idea of looking at it as making it more comprehensive, the whole thing. Why not? It's contained area, might as well do the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Marina base.
The whole
Marina
marina
base.
base. Okay, right. Okay, that's great. So then what we can do is work with Points Consulting, come up with a scope of work, and then come back with a contract. Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Could I have one follow-up?
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Becker, why the economic impact? What's important to you about that?
It's important because that's why ports were formed. And if we don't have a metric, then it's very hard to measure how successful we're being.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if and we have one back ways, yeah.
I think a robust one was done in 2014.
Sounds about right.
Right.
Yeah, so to me, seeing an updated economic impact it's kind of one of the things we can use to measure our success, whether we're on track. And it might also help identify new priorities.
Thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
And then just speaking to the bridge, I think to echo what the commission said, we have a bunch of people working on it, and in July, the bridge becomes federalized. And so I don't think that there needs to be any sort of bridge discussion in this, just specifically because eventually it's not going to become a Port of Hood River issue, and I think that'd be a waste of time. I don't know if my other commissioners agree, but I think we should really streamline what we want this to do, and we all know that we're going to be building a bridge here hopefully very soon. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness in the presentation, but I would urge us not to put too many ingredients into that recipe, because we're just going to dilute what we actually are doing here overall.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's all that we have, unless there's any further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're excited.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So does that,
Or anything else? I think we're done with spring planning.
Okay.
So if you want to adjourn, then we can go into a very brief regular session.
Yep, I hereby adjourn spring planning. That concludes our spring planning work session. And I'll call regular session to order in a few minutes. You guys need a break or just want to rock it?
rocket?
All right, cool. Yep. Okay, I call a regular session to order at 5:34. And are there any modification to the minutes or additions to the agenda?
There aren't any.
All right, hearing none, is there any
I
public
think we've lost our leader.
public comment?
Nothing to speak, we're just here to.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
So,
Any other public comment?
Pete Tesmer and then Steve Carlson.
Can we comment on the spring planning?
Yeah, step up and state your name and
My name is Steve Carlson. I'm coming up on my 15th year as a marine lieutenant, and I used to be the waterfront manager prior to Daryl, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Hood River Yacht Club. Historically, the Port representing the marina has offered subleasing to tenants, and it was decided this year that that wasn't going to be offered by staff. And in on page 135 of your packet, in the recreation and marina statement made by staff, it says marina subleasing staff has suspended marina subleasing due to continued misuse of the privilege and intends to recommend the elimination of subleasing in the 26-27 marina rules and regulations. So as having sat at Daryl's desk administering those subleases is of extra work, and there has certainly been abuse of that privilege, and its administration and its enforcement are very difficult. But the primary benefactors of subleasing, in addition to the slip holders themselves, for instance, I'm not going to be able to use my slip very much this summer, and there's a possibility I'd like to sublease to somebody else, for which I would receive equivalent funds to what I've contributed. So there's no profit involved or anything, and that option would go to the first person on the wait list. And anyway, other people that benefit from this are some of the more active people in our boating community, which are some of the sailboat racers who are also on the wait list. And as people go down the wait list, sometimes those people end up with those slips as well. Anyway, I would encourage staff to consider the opportunity to do sublease. That's a lot of work for you guys. Consider that. And also, as you move forward with 26-27 potential rules and regulations change, I think that HRYC, Hood River Yacht Club, will make a statement to the board regarding our feelings about that. New stakeholder group may have an opinion about that as well. But anyway, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you guys.
Hey, thanks for sharing that. Putting it on the radar.
That's good stuff.
Appreciate it. All right, moving to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion
Did you want to make a public comment?
Well, can I just, I guess so.
Yeah, go ahead and step up. Thanks. Yep.
Do you mind if I shut these down?
Go ahead and state your name.
Kristen Hodkin.
Neighbor.
Yeah, I know. A lot of new friendly faces here. So I thought I would just drop by and just make sure people are aware of Big Art and have an understanding about it. I don't want to take up too much time, so I won't go through the whole background, unless there's somebody here would like a little bit of background on what it is.
No, we love art.
Okay. We're in our 12th year, 7th session, and it's a rotating public art every 2 years. And we're just about to start selection process on the next pieces. And I believe we talked to Megan and Amanda, and we were hoping that the port would continue to support at least 2 sites. The city, just to let you know, the city cannot be a cornerstone foundational partner because of the urban renewal zones, but they hope to then pick it up another couple of sessions. So we are looking for a cornerstone partner, which is like the 10,000 umbrella sponsor. So we would love for the port to officially consider that. And in lieu of that, we would love your continued support for a couple of sites, 2 sites.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, now we'll get to go to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
My motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, is there any discussion? I
I do have
couple
a question.
items, but go ahead.
Commissioner Baker, I believe we are on this. We do maybe have some of the same comments. For the welding and deck repair, is there a way we're keeping track of the money spent and the value added to the safety of the bridge? Question mark.
Yeah, this would be a great opportunity for Amanda.
Yeah.
She's been studying this one.
Yeah, so love to answer this question.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you will.
Prior to right now, Commissioner Baker brought this up last time, that there hasn't been great tracking of what's been done. And kind of what the outcome is long-term of each well. So Megan and I, during one of the overnight bridge closures, went ahead and walked the bridge with Bulldog Welding, who is the partner that we usually use to do the welding, to assess the cracks, look at past welding, things like that, through communication with Bulldog Welding, along with communications of Cascade Locks, who also uses Bulldog Welding. There's a big discussion about the previous kinds of welds, which were spot welds, the purpose of those, and the very temporary hold that they bring, somewhere around a year, depending on weight load, and how it may be better money spent to explore what they call spider welds. And so our goal with the new contract is to go ahead and possibly do spider welds, which take a little bit longer to achieve, but they essentially hold semi-permanently and don't need to so much be redone every single year. So assuming we move ahead with the spider welds, we will begin tracking those per weld in each span and the mapping procedures that we've laid out, to then track those and how much money we're spending on those, how much time we're spending, and essentially how long they're lasting, to hopefully get the best time out of our money and money spent to uphold the bridge.
So to date, we don't necessarily have that information. Is that correct?
We have some information from 24, 25 prior management had collected some details, but they're not sufficient to tell us the kinds of welds that were done, how long they were lasting, what was redone or not redone, not a great map, is Commissioner Beaker pointed out.
That's my only question for that topic. Commissioner Beaker, do you have any follow-up?
That's just I'm just so glad you brought that up. I was gonna, yeah, but the only other question I had was just a real quick one. Section B, the approving the bid for solicitation for the painting and
Sure.
miscellaneous steel repairs. Do you just have a ballpark idea of how many firms we think might respond to such a request?
We do not, and it has been especially hard to find people to give accurate quotes on the painting. HDR has done a really great job of trying to get that scope ahead of time, and they really had trouble. Turns out not many people paint steel bridges on a daily basis. So we really have no idea at this point how big that scope and offers are gonna be.
I guess my big concern is that we have an estimated cost of about 1.2 million.
Mhm.
And when we have our own estimated cost and then we go out and if we just get one bid and they're like, oh, guess what? It's 1.2 million. I just want to make sure that we have a process where we're getting enough bidders that it's competitive and we get a good deal on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no reason to think we would only get one bid. I think it's a highly competitive market, like Jeff was mentioning, with people looking for work, that we could at least make a decent assumption we'll have some competitiveness involved.
If I could just hop
Yeah,
on that.
yeah, yeah.
So this is a large procurement. So this is the one procurement where we bring the procurement document to you for approval.
Right.
Ultimately, this will go on Oregon Buys.
Mhm.
And it will go, there's for the strategic business planning, which is 6,000 companies that fit those codes. So that'll be the most likely way to increase the largest bandwidth for proposals.
Excellent. Great to hear. Those in favor of the consent agenda?
Hang on, I'm sorry, I have another question. I apologize. Megan, can you please explain why KPFF needs another $460,412.50 to a project? I believe, is this the second increase they've asked for?
This
Didn't
is,
we approve another increase before?
so for KPFF, this would be the second amendment. My understanding is that the first amendment came forward in January of 24, and it was really to adjust the project scope from the East Anchorway extension to shift to the roundabout. And so my understanding is that at the time was a no cost kind of scope change to move forward with the design. But with that, the intention was to get it to the 30% design milestone. And in that amendment, there was also like an aspiration of, if we can, we'll get it as close to a 60% as possible. But with the budget that was in that original contract, they didn't think that they would get to the full 60%. And so we're at this point now where they've achieved the 30% design milestone. They've started to progress towards the 60% design milestone that we'll have in, by end of this fiscal year. And so this is really kind of that next step in the process, is to fund them from 60% to 100% design. So it's not additional money for which they were scoped for before. It's kind of taking it to the next phase of work and moving from 60% to 100% design.
So their scope was to get us to 30, or their scope was to get us to 60?
The scope was to get us to 30, and there was language in the original contract that said whatever money, like we'd do the consultant would do their best to take it as far towards 60 as possible. So I'm going to say that we're at like a 45% design, even though that's not like a formal milestone, but I'd say they've gotten it to about a 45% design with the budget in the original contract.
And I may have missed this in the write-up. Thank you for the write-up. Is this a time and materials contract, or is this a lump sum?
This is time, I believe it's time and materials. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I apologize, my fellow commissioners. Was this a lowest price awardee, or was this a best value?
It was actually it was an engineering procurement. It was actually the highest level procurement.
So best value.
No,
Best value?
no, because it was scored by Qualls.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Highest qualified.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an RFP, not an ITB. Invitation to bid, request for proposals. Invitation to bids are low cost.
Sure.
As a consultant, I think a way you get a lot of money is just to keep asking for scope change. And I understand that's a way, you go in LPTA and then you just get for some scope change, and then you ask for another scope change, and then you ask for another scope change, and it ends up being one thing after another. I wanted to raise that concern, as I really do appreciate your oversight, Megan, and your value add to our commission. I appreciate that. I see your recommendation is to approve this, and so I do value staff's input. I just ask us that we just don't let consultants run us around, if you will, and just keep adding to the overall cost, just because these are taxpayer dollars. So thank you for clarifying that. Those are all my questions, Commissioner.
Okay, those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Moving on, informational reports, monthly financial.
I think her brain's tired. You are correct. Thank you. Yeah, and I really don't have anything to add. This one is, by the way, though, you will notice if you look at, if you've had a chance to look at it with all the other data that I have fed to you for today's meeting, this one is with the reorg in it. And then also, I need to do something. I didn't put my page numbers on here. We have a lot of industrial properties now, and that's even if you print on 11 by 17, it's getting hard to read. So anyway, that it is the new format and reflects the budget as it is today.
Thank you.
So
Executive Director report.
I have nothing to add at this time.
Commissioner and committee reports.
Kevin's tired too.
No, I just don't have anything else to add.
They're tired.
Under commissioner reports, I have something fun to add real quick. I accompanied Greenwood Roads and Channel to the port of Kaminista-Washougal for a day to do a sort of inter-port exchange, where we received a tour of the airport and a tour of their big waterfront development project, and also got to meet with representative of the developer. And that was a fantastic meeting. I think we all learned a lot, and they, I think, didn't. So we need to maybe reciprocate to the port of Kaminista-Washougal, because they really bent over backwards to share everything that they're doing with us. And it was a great learning opportunity. They, I think, do a really good job of engaging with their community, and I took some pointers from them. And their relationship with their developer for their big waterfront mixed commercial and residential project was really cool to get to meet and talk to and see how they approached it. And that kind of gave me some ammunition in the future when looking at developers who might work with our port, and sort of some desired best practices. So that was just an incredibly useful couple of hours, I feel. And I just want to share that with the rest of the commission.
And thank you for flying us there. Oh, yeah. Megan's first flight in a small plane, and maybe Amanda's too.
Yes.
Sure. So that was fun.
Quick bridge update, if I may. Just so everyone is aware, we did not receive the 2025 BIP application. There were 2 awardees, just so everyone is also more aware. The last money we need is federal funding for $532 million to build the bridge. We have the state funding, we have the local funding. We're waiting for that last in dollar of federal funding. The bridge improvement program is is built for bridges like ours that are waiting for that last dollar in to break ground. We are highly ranked in the current scoring. We're actually better ranked in this administration than the past one because of the way that the bridge is being set up and how it is a get you from point A to point B bridge with not multimodal different lanes, et cetera. And so we are very highly positioned to hopefully receive the 2026 BIP grant application. They are in preliminary review at this point. We had a meeting with USDOT, and so there will be some asks from different stakeholders in the community, specifically farmers, agriculture, orchardists, individuals who utilize the bridge both on top and underneath, because we need as many people as possible to be reaching out to specific delegates and also USDOT individuals to ensure that they understand the project is not just of a very small community importance, but more of a national importance. So there will be that ask, I think, coming from the Bridge Authority. As most people are aware, this is really, if we don't get the 2026 BIP funding, which again, like I said, is in preliminary review, the project will increase in price, probably about $80 million. And so we want to ensure that we keep taxpayer money as, you know, as most benefit to our community as possible. So we're not just paying for inflation and pushing the ball down the court. We're having meetings, you know, we had meetings yesterday, today, Wednesday, and Thursday. So where our delegation is really open to hearing from us. And so we're really hopeful for that. There has been a lot of talks about what federalizing a bridge means. And so I just want to, you know, make the Port Authority aware and my fellow commissioners aware that we have a lot of people advocating for a bridge, but I think there may mean making some phone calls if that makes sense. And there may be some direct asks coming from the Hood River Bridge Authority and potentially Summit Strategies, which is our lobbyist group. But just please be ready for that, because I think our community needs a bridge. Obviously, you all know that, but it really is tying both White Salmon and Hood River together as a larger impactful value add to the Pacific Northwest overall. So glad to talk more about that offline. As I understand, it is almost 6 p.m. where you are, and it's 9 p.m. where I have been, and I've been up since 3 a.m. your time. So thank you all for everybody who's coming. I appreciate it. And please feel free to reach out to me with any further questions as well. That is all, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas, and thank you for your current efforts in Washington. We all appreciate it. Upcoming meetings for us, we have a budget meeting on May 5th, a regular session on the 19th, another regular session on 16th, and I adjourn. We're done. Have a nice evening. Thanks for coming.